Hi, Will. Welcome back to the Animal Tone podcast.
Oh, thanks. It's great to be back.
You've spoken along, you and Sue have both written about social membership for a long time, how animals should be considered members of our societies, particularly domesticated animals, because we brought them into the domus. So if we make them part of our societies, we should at the very least recognize that they should share in some of the benefits of belonging to a society. But more recently, you've been interested in how animals have been included in kind of the development of policy and regulation related to family relations and labor relations. And I assume that this is more kind of politics on behalf of and politics with animals. But why do you think looking at how animals are considered in labor law or family law, why do you think this is important when thinking about animals and politics?
Right. The um, so one way to think about it is that um, in the case of domesticated animals, um, no, let me step back. With respect to all sentient animals, we think there are certain obligations we have to animals, human and non-human animals, simply because of they're sentient. They have an experience of their lives going better or worse, and that should set limits on how we treat them and generates a set of universal rights. And a lot of historically, a lot of the animal rights movement has been focused on getting recognition of what we owe animals simply in virtue of the fact that they are sentient and have an intrinsic moral status. But in the case of domesticated animals, in addition to those basic rights that flow from being a sentient being, we think that justice requires acknowledging their membership in our society. We brought them into our society through domestication. They have over generations. They've been bred in order to live and work amongst us. And that therefore we should think about the society as belonging to them as well as to us. So then, that's an argument we've made many times. But then the question is, what is going to so if we're thinking about this membership domain, so this means that the animal advocacy movement has uh, you know we need to be moving on two different tracks. We still need to keep fighting for recognition of sentience and for the universal rights that flow from sentience, but we also need to be fighting for membership, recognition of membership, and the distinctive rights and responsibilities that flow from membership. In the case of domesticated animals, and there, I just think in that if we think about other um, movements who have been confronted with this challenge of how do you make claims to social membership. I mean, the idea of society is kind of abstract, and so it's useful to try to think about what are the concrete moments, what are the concrete contexts where membership is really visible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that two of these are the family and work. So there's just so much overwhelming evidence that many people view their companion animals as members of the family, as members, not just as sentient individuals, but as members of a family, which they view as a collective unit.
Mm-hmm.
And so they talk about we, and we went for a walk, and they're including the companion animal in the we. And then they and they um, and so I think it's really important that we think about families as multi-species families. And I think the legal, and we see legal trends in this direction. And one of the most interesting is about divorce. When a couple divorces, um, uh, in the past, the companion, and they had a dog or a cat, the companion animal was just seen as a piece of property, and so was subject to the same rules as the division of a couch or a closet or something. Whereas if we instead see the companion animal as a member of the family, the way that children are a member of the family, then the rules are that custody should be based on the interests of the animal, not on ownership principles. So different norms apply to members and I think there's growing recognition that for legal purposes, companion animals really should be seen as members.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as I said, I think that's already part of the way most people think. Many people think about the companion animals, but the law is recognizing it. That membership is the right way to think about companion animals in relation to the family. And then in work, that historically, at least, the way in which many groups have staked claims to membership is by making some kind of contribution to a collaborative, to some form of social cooperation. And of course, we have recruited animals into the workplace in all sorts of ways, many of them completely unjust and exploitative. But there are at least some examples of interspecies workplaces where the humans and the animals view themselves as members of a work team, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So if you read the descriptions about humans and tracker dogs or sniffer dogs at the airport, they really, but the humans think of the dog as a co-worker. And they often train together. They work the same hours. They work, and as colleagues. And so I think again, certain kinds of interspecies workplaces. You could also think about therapy dogs are very visible. It's really so. I guess what I'm saying is that in these specific contexts, it's really hard not to acknowledge what we have here is a case of social membership. There's just no way to understand that relationship except through the idea that we really are part of a social relationship, that we're members of a social cooperative scheme. And so I do see some legal recognition in these contexts that we don't just have obligations to animals because they're sentient and suffer, but because they are members of a social unit, and that it's really important to us that they be members, it's important to them, and we should treat them accordingly.